with the opaque transparencies, what the goal is to show the illusion of transparency, and that's why they're referred to as the opaque transparencies. And so the examples I have here are from the printed out color charts, but in that you have two of what we refer to as median transparencies, if I can get my hand in the right position, these two right there. And what happens in this is that you simply select a really dark color and then a really light color. It doesn't matter which dark colors you select or which light colors you select. What you're going to do is paint those into these bands here. And so basically I usually have the students tape off a rectangle here. And then they paint the dark color in first and then the light color. And then what they do is they mix almost a 50-50 visual mixture. It's not going to be an actual 50-50 because the dark color is going to be a lot stronger than the weak color. But what happens is when you mix that together and then paint that in the middle, what happens is it creates the visual illusion of transparency. Like that yellow is overlapping that purple, or in the other case, the green is overlapping the pink. And it creates the illusion, the visual illusion of transparency. And so it's a really cool effect that you can put into your compositions. It gives the illusion that shapes are overlapping or coming in front of another shape, and it creates a sense of perspective depth in your composition. And so they're referred to as opaque transparencies because these are not glazes. There's a technique in painting where you can get the paint really thin and you glaze a color over another color, and that's actual transparency where the color is thinned and you can see through it. But in this case, it's actually three separate colors that dry opaquely, and then when they dry, it tricks the eye into seeing transparency. And so that's why these are referred to as opaque transparencies. And these two are median because basically the center is a 50-50 mixture. So the center is taking the one dark color and the one light color, mixing them together, and you basically get a half color between them. And so these are the easiest ones to do. You really don't have to think about it at all. Normally when the students are doing their complementary intensity scales, as they're going across, they'll have leftover color. When they're doing these, they'll have leftover color. And what they can do is just use some of that color to fill in for their crosses. But you can, today I'm just going to mix, new color to do them. So the medium are the first two right there. And then the other two, if you read the handout, is referred to as dark transparencies. And with the dark transparencies, you can see the actual colors are pretty light. In this case here, you can see light blue and light orange. And on the bottom, light green and light pink, right? And so the reason they're called dark transparencies is because this is not my terminology. This is the official color theory terminology. But they're called dark transparencies because you add black to the center. And so some of you may say, oh, wait a second, I don't have black in my kit. That's okay. Just do that same mixture where you put red, yellow, and blue together, and you get a dark tone, and you can add just a little bit of that to it. But in this case, both of these colors have a little bit, let me see if I can get it the right way. There it goes. It has a little bit of black in the center, and why you need to add a little bit of black to the center is because it creates three tones. And so you need, for the most part, three values, separate values to create the sense of illusion. For the most part, that's kind of a generalized kind of idea. And so in this case, we have two colors that are extremely light values. This is a light blue and a light orange. And then if we were to mix those together to create a 50-50 mixture like we did in the medians, what would happen when it dries, you wouldn't see any difference between the orange and blue, and it would be kind of hard to see the illusion. So what you have to do is add a little bit of black to the center to create a third step value, a darker value, so that visually our eyes see it as a different color. And then we see that distinct illusion happen of the overlapping. Think of it like you had a clear piece of film, like a yellow piece of film, in this case here, like you had a yellow piece of film, and then you had a purple, strip of color, and you took that yellow piece of transparency and overlapped it onto that purple. And in that center would be that visual mixture that happens when you have, a transparent color go over another one. And so that's kind of the goal of the assignment. It's useful for the color scheme projects that we'll do next, because in there, in the assignment, I always say I give you bonus points if you show me some opaque transparencies, but if you can show the illusion of overlapping or transparency using opaque color, I usually give you a little bonus. But anyway, it's a cool kind of technique to use to create more depth and dimension in one's composition. if you have the, in reference to the handout, let me go back to share screen. And we'll go down to assignment here. And once again, to recap, when you submit it, when you're completely done with everything, when you're done with the free studies, when you're done with the primary secondaries, when you're done with the complementary intensity scales, when you're done with the opaque transparencies, when you're done with your color wheel, when you're done with all of that, take really high quality photos of them. I would recommend going outside if you can go outside, and if you have like a patio or a sidewalk, and just kind of put your works down on that, step over them in the nice daylight, and take a good photo of it. Make sure you're not casting a shadow on the work, and then just take those and submit those, and that would be your assignments submitted for your final grade for the first projects. That's why I call them the color charts, the free studies and the color charts. But let me open this handout here, and we'll zoom it in once it loads. Oops, that's the wrong one. It's the number 2. We'll zoom in on that. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down over the color wheel information. If you haven't referenced that, please go do that as well. And then, let me zoom in. Let me get my throat going. And so I'm just going to read this real fast. It says here, opaque transparencies. By suggesting the passage of one plane in front of another, the illusion of transparency can enhance the appearance of spatial depth and two-dimensional design. Illusionistic transparency made with opaque color should not be confused with the literal transparencies of watercolor. That's what that last sentence there is talking about. Is in watercolor or in oil painting, there's a lot of times where you thin the paint and do a glaze for doing portraiture and different things like that. This is actually opaque, solid swatches of color that trick the eye into seeing the illusion of transparency. So the next paragraph there, transparency studies are difficult to execute because they require precise mixing and painting skills. The illusion makes one shape appear to overlap another so that a third shape or third color seems to be a part of each is created between them. Imagine 2 translucent rectangles superimposed at right angles to form a cross. Emerging at the intersection of the cross is a square. The color of this central square determines the pervasiveness of the illusion. And so let me go down. Okay, here's a medium. There are 2 distinct categories. The first is median. So it's just an average. So that's just a fancy term for average, right? An average of the 2. So the hue and the value of the overlapping areas lie precisely halfway between the hue and the value of the 2 parent colors. So whatever the 2 parent ones. And so in this one, you just have to pick an extremely dark color and an extremely light color. That's all you have to do. And then mix them 50-50 for the middle. Not an actual 50-50, but a visual 50-50. For example, if yellow transverses blue, the square in the center will be a middle value achieved by mixing 50-50 combinations. Because yellow is relatively light and blue is relatively dark. It will also be a green because green sits between yellow and blue in the color wheel. So basically you would be making that, your 2 primaries and your secondary. Both the hue and the value of the center square are between the 2 parent colors. And then with the dark one, it says here, you want to pick 2 pastel colors and then add a dark color to that in order to create that third transparency. But I will show you that here in 1 second. So let me start sharing because we're running out of time. And let me get to the painting part, the fun part. And so I'm using, I'm just going to use the measurements here on the bottom here, which is on the bottom of my opaque, of my complementary intensity scales. And so that's what I was doing at the beginning of class. But I'm just going to take my ruler, and the measurements here say 2, 4, 5, 6. I think that's what that says, right? 7, 8, 9, 10 is what those measurements are. So that's on the very bottom there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it at the top here and then at the bottom. So there's 2 lines there. I'll show you what I mean in 1 second. And so I'm going to put my ruler on this line right there. Right there. And then I'm going to make a mark at 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then I'm going to drop my ruler to the bottom of my paper and do the same thing. And this will be the layout for the opaque transparencies. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and then skip over that and go 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then drop my pencil down, or excuse me, drop my ruler down to the bottom, do the same thing, measure starting at 1 at the same point, meaning 0 is on this side, so I want to make sure my 0 for the bottom line is on that same side. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, skip 6, and then 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I'm going to lightly draw a pencil line to connect the two. Make sure you always measure the 2 points so you get a nice straight line. Ideally, I didn't have to do my line completely across, but just want to show you what it looks like. I hope you can see it. I'm hoping that when I'm live, my feed is, you can see much more detail than what it is when it's compressed, when I get the video from the recording from Zoom. It disappoints me greatly. The quality lost. The other day I'd already did my sidelines, and I don't know if you can see that, but you can see the grid there, and you could say, well, how's that across? We're just gonna erase away the other area. And so if you're wondering how I got the side measurements there, meaning this mark right here, right there, and right there to get those lines across. I did those the other day when we did the opaque, the complementary intensity scales. And then those measurements are right there. They are a measurement at 10, 11, 12, and 13. And then move your ruler to the other side, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then that's how you get those measurements on right there. So that's what I'm looking at right here. The complementary intensity scales up here, and then the 2 opaque transparencies on the bottom. So now I'm going to erase away the areas that I don't need. So just take 1 second. This is the exciting part. I'm just going to do enough just so we can see it. And I'm just going to do, on this one, I'm going to do one as a median and one as a dark transparency. Ideally, you'll do 2 mediums on one page and then 2 mediums on your other page, which is under your color wheel. You'll do like 2 dark on this page and then the 2 medium on this one. But if you do 1 and 1, that's fine, if you want to just copy what I'm doing. But you can see there, I just did a kind of a, you can see my, hopefully you can see my crosses there. Karina, can you see the crosses there? Does that actually show up on your side or no?
Yes, I can see them.
Okay, thank you. When I edit the video, a lot of times I'm holding it up, so I look at my pencil lines, and then when I'm editing the video, this camera sees nothing on the page, and so I'm always like, no wonder they're looking at me in the camera like, what is going on? But anyway, so I need to get my palette paper, and for the median transparency, it's real simple. You pick one super dark value color, and then one super light value color. And so hopefully everybody, normally in the class when I talk about this one in studio, I'll ask like, Tim, what is value? And Tim would say, value is the range from white to dark in a color or a value or something like that. And so when I reference a super dark color, if you look at these crosses here, you can see how one band is a really dark color, and then the other band, if I can get my finger in the right position, the other band is an extremely light, so it's like a light green and a dark violet is what we have there. And so for the median, that's all you would do. And I'm looking for my tape, and it's right here. So let me tape them. And so let me show you how I do them. I just take my tape and do the long bands first. And do the other long band. How much time do I have? And then we'll start from there. If you have tape, ideally, this tape is going to be the size of the inner square. So I'm going to tape out the middle as well. And remember, you don't have to tape if you don't want to tape. It's up to you. I'm just doing it here because it makes it go much quicker for the most part. I might do one without tape just to show you how you would do it. And what did I do? There it is. Okay, so the paint that I want to use, I'm going to pick a dark color, any dark color. I'll do a navy blue, a dark blue. So I'll take my blue, straight blue, squeeze that out. Don't need a lot of it. But you want to make sure you have enough of your mixture of your band colors to paint the middle, so make sure you have some left over. And then I'm going to take a little bit of red. Making a mess, but it's okay. And I want to mix that together, and there was a little paint scum.
Professor Jeffrey, what colors are you doing? You're taking red and what else?
Red and blue. A lot of blue, a little bit of red. I was thinking that I could do a little bit of black too, but I know some of you don't have black, but I'm just going to do the red and blue together, and that'll make that dark purple tone that a lot of you got in on your scales. Oops. Okay. Add a little bit more red. It doesn't, honestly, it doesn't matter. You can pick any dark color that you want to use. And so dark greens, dark blues, purples, dark reds. How would you make red darker? You could add blue to it, but that would kind of make it more of a purple color. And so what you could do is add black to it. Let me just add black to this. If you add black to the blue color, it's going to make it look more navy, I guess you would say, to use a name. So this is going to be a super dark color. And so the medians are really easy because you don't really have to think about it. You just mix a dark color, and that's what I have here. And let me figure out what I did with my area. So that's what I have my area right there. And so now I'm going to paint it in, if I can move all this stuff here. Get my brush, and I'm just going to scoop off of this. Scoop off of that. And then just paint it in. It's not much of a thought to it.
And is that the middle square, Professor Jeffrey?
I'm painting, this will be the bands. I'll show you here in 1 second, but it's basically my bands. One
And
band.
it's like a really dark color, you said. It could be like black, even.
You could use black, that's fine. And let me just get this in, and I'll pull the tape off so you can see what I did. Just make sure you have enough to mix your middle. I saved the middle for last. Right now I'm doing the one band. And so, get my hands clean. Okay. 1 second as I move the tape around. You can see even, I'll show you here in a second, even with the tape, I can see a little part squeezed under because I didn't push the tape down that hard, firmly. So I'll do the other band without tape. But I just basically, that's going to be one of my sides there. And so for the other side of the bands that are going to overlap, I'll do a light pink. So I'm just going to take red, and I'm just going to use a little bit of red and then a lot of white. And so a little bit of red and a lot of white will be the next. Oops, that came right off. That's weird. Okay, let me rinse off my brush. Clean off my palette knife. And let me just mix this together. And so median is just a super dark color and a super light color. That's all I have here. And so, just to show you, you can see just pick pink and blue, standard colors, super light, super dark, nothing fancy. And this one I will see, let me just paint it in without tape, just to show you how I would do it. With this, you'd want a square brush. It should make it easier. Two, if the paint has a little bit of water into it, just a little bit into your mixture, it's gonna make it flow a little bit better for you. So that's what I did right there, just add a little bit of water. And so I just have my paints on my brush. And so I did my blue bands here, so now I want to do my pink, and my pink will go into these outside. I do not want to paint over the center. The center, I'm going to leave that for last. And so we're going to do just the other two outside bands. And so just paint it in without...
The outside ones are the light ones, right?
Yes. And so when I'm not using tape, what I do is I always start away from my line and then kind of push the brush up to the line so that I kind of shimmy it is the term I use, to the line. And then I'm constantly flipping the canvas or the paper around to get to, so my brush right now is doing the shimmy shake so I can get up to the line. Luckily, I haven't had my coffee this morning, so I should be able to shimmy shake it a little bit better. If you're using a filbert, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do straight lines. My brush is a flat brush, which means the bristles are square. So just be aware of that. You could use a round brush, which is the foxtail shaped brush. The one thing about taping, it just makes it, you can be a little bit more, haphazard with it, but when you're not taping. Okay, so that's one side there, untaped, and now I will do the other side. And just make sure the paint is more of that consistency of mayonnaise. And so if it's that consistency, then it's easier to paint in without tape. Just be aware of that. So now I'm going to do the other band. So I kind of, my lines here, I start the brush a little bit further down, and then I kind of just, like if I'm cold, like Karina is cold right now because it's 75 degrees here and not 100. So I'm going to and then shake my way up to the line. And that to me is the best way that I've found to do a nice straight line. And two, a lot of times one side of your brush has a better square, a corner, I guess you should say, or I should say. And so a lot of times I'll flip my brush around because one side has a better corner, if that makes sense. So if you're trying to get into a little space, figure out which side is better. Almost done here. And when you're flipping around your paper or your canvas, make sure you're not throwing it into your palette. I just need to finish it going in the same direction. I missed a little bit of a spot here. Let me just go back in here and get this. Okay. That last mark there, I went over the line. So what I'm going to do is just use my finger. I think I've showed you this before. Okay. So those would be my two bands. And so I have a super dark and a super light. As I said, it doesn't matter which super dark or super light you select. In this case, I did a kind of a really dark purpley, dark blue, and a very light pink. Because I'm gonna paint the middle, what I'm gonna do is hit it with the hair blow dryer. So I'll be right back. So it's dry to the touch now. I can kind of touch it with the hair blow dryer, dried the acrylic. So now I'm gonna mix my middle. And so the middle is gonna be a visual halfway, 50-50 mixture of that. And so I'm gonna start with the pink and just add a little bit of the blue until I get a color that's visually halfway between the two. So I'm gonna scoop away from this pink tone, put that right there in the middle. Make sure you have enough color to get across. And then I'm just going to add just a little bit of that blue to the mixture, not much. And it's gonna probably be a grayish kind of color. Let's see. That's probably decent. I could probably add just a little bit more blue to it. So what we want it to look like is like with the pink is overlapping the blue, like it's a transparency, and then it's creating a third color. Hopefully you can see that. That's probably decent. You see, it's probably, I could add just a little bit more blue. I don't know if you're getting going from the pink to what I mixed in the middle to the blue. I could add just a touch of the blue to get there, and I might just do that just to be picky. And just a little bit, just to get it a little bit more bluish tinged. And then that should be good. And because of time, I'm gonna tape, because I want to get to the next one. So that's probably a good middle step between those two right there. These are not very hard. It just takes a second to kind of do them. That's why we save them for the last, or I have them the last thing to do. But I'm gonna tape because I want to expedite the process. So move that up there. And just make sure you tape the line. This illusion really depends on how cleanly you make the inner square. So if your inner square is kind of off, it'll kind of throw the illusion off. And so try your best to kind of get that center nice and clean in there. I'm really kind of pushing down on the edges just to make sure that I don't get any color that bleeds underneath. And so I'm gonna clean my brush off. And let me load up. Should be good actually. I was gonna put some water into it, just a little bit. I don't want too much because I don't want it runny. And let me just load my brush up. And it's not too hard, just kind of fill that in. That's what I'm doing. Try not to get paint on your white part of your Bristol. If anybody's having issues with their Bristol or they haven't been able to get the Bristol paper, just contact me and we can figure out what you can do. Okay, let me get this nice and consistent. All right, that was all I had to do is I taped it off and then I painted it in. So now it's a nice kind of gray, purple, lavender tone there. I'm gonna pull off the tape and let's see what it looks like. Okay. And here you go. Hopefully you can see that. And so that's what's referred to as a median. So you're just taking the average of the super dark, super light. Students will ask me, even though I say this a million times, it doesn't matter which colors you pick, just as long as one is a super dark, one is a super light. So from pure white to pure black, pick one super dark, pick one super light, and then you just mix a mixture that's halfway between them, and that's a median. It's real easy to do, and so that's knocked out. So let me do the dark transparency.